Yeah, we'll put that. Good evening. Welcome to the March 9th, 2015 Architecture and Historic Review Board meeting. We have been told that 24 Belden will present at the end of the meeting. So we're
82.
82. Sorry. So we'll just put them at the end of the agenda, and we'll look at that when they arrive. Let's start with 26 Palisade Street, please. No one here from 26 Palisade?
Yes,
oh, yeah.
Microphone. This project's at 26 Palisade Street.
Grab the mic for us so we can get
sorry.
on tape. Thank you.
And you can see in the drawing, in the photographs there, that there's a is it supposed to do that? No, feedback.
You're right under a speaker.
Oh, maybe that's it. Anyway, there's a little retaining wall that's in disrepair, and if you're any of your commuters, you've probably seen the property before, right across from the train station. So we're proposing redoing retaining walls as two separate retaining walls, and then also including a little two-story sort of storage shed that can be accessed from the street level and from the top, the intermediate terrace. And so we have the drawings. So the idea, which the client actually came to me with this notion of having a little two-story structure and making it sort of like a lighthouse, seemed like sort of a wonderful idea, because obviously there's an allusion to the river and to the nautical sort of aspect of the river, and even the two towers on the bridge, which I know Dave doesn't like very much from his perspective, but at least there's that connection there. And we've got all the variances. There were a number of variances required, as you can imagine. And that's the existing house in the renderings up here. And this is the little structure down below. So yeah, it's supposed to be an allusion to a little lighthouse, and also function as a storage for bicycles below and garden equipment above. And I think Dave and Lenore probably do some planting up on the terraces of one variety or another. You can see in the selection in that packet I gave you various photographs of the context, and there's also a photograph of the retaining wall material. It's a you see it there? Yeah, it's the type that you just stack up, and it has fabric that retains it back into the soil. And then there's a photograph of the rope railings across the top of the retaining walls. And then below, we're proposing a pervious surface, a pervious paving on where the parking is now. We're extending the parking in deeper and making it a little larger, so two cars actually fit. If you've seen it, two cars don't really fit, and I think they're often out on the sidewalk a little bit because they kind of don't fit right. So we're improving that condition, and Dave, sorry. And this is the palette for the house, well, it actually is similar to the palette of the existing house on the property, so the little lighthouse will match that color. And I think that's about it.
Since this is literally in my backyard, I just want to congratulate you. It really is a folly.
Where are you?
1 Main.
Oh, okay. Oh, you are.
Oh,
you are really.
I
Okay.
actually look at this, and I was very happy to see this. You've done a nice
good.
job.
Oh, good.
It's like a little folly.
Yeah, exactly. It is like a little folly. Yeah, it's sort of. I love
It's
the
very
idea.
nice.
Yeah, I agree. It's playful, it's fun, there's humor, and it's nice to see that kind of this kind of projects. So
Thought we
I
might
think
have
the only question we had was the maybe a detail of the rope railing, which we see.
Yeah,
It
it's-
sounded really interesting, but now I mean, is this what you're proposing?
Yeah, tighter spacing, but that's basically, that's it.
And
It's not accessible anyways, right?
The roof of it, or the roof of it? Actually, it's funny. We had a little debate about that.
oh, this.
Had- went out of reach
Where
to
the
top,
rail is,
but
it's
there's
not
no-
accessible.
But you also have it here. You have this rope
Oh.
rail
Oh,
here and
yeah,
here
yeah, yeah, right.
on the decks.
I missed that.
Yeah, the terraces are of course
Also, right.
accessible. This is really a low rail here. It doesn't function as a guardrail. It would have to be quite a bit higher, and there's various safety issues involved if you were really trying to make it accessible out there, I think.
I like the bollards, Dave.
You might want to make it a little smaller to make them happy, but it's a nice project.
And so how do we quantify this stone material? Because I think, I mean, in my mind, the structure is very well conceived and executed, and the wall, but the wall sort of has the largest presence. And so is there a way that we can you tell us a little more? Is this exactly what you're using, or this is the system,
Yeah,
but then
that's the palette we're proposing, and it has a nice varying quality. A lot of products some of it is practicality of cost and not doing stone and doing that instead. But what I thought was nice about that is you do get kind of a mosaic pattern, which is hard to do with that type of product and the fabric going back, because it has to have some consistent rhythm in order for the structure to work properly, but they kind of cleverly disguise the fact that it's actually quite regular if you analyze it, although it doesn't look regular, which is what
Something similar if you keep walking past a couple of houses, right? Because we walk around the block all the time, so.
Yeah, it's not uncommon.
But it's all
thing.
gray, I think. It's
Yeah,
not-
usually they're not so nice. In fact, Master School above the Stop and Shop has this system, but it's not anywhere near as nice. I don't think,
No, but
because
right
it's all
past,
regular.
yeah, right
And
past,
past two, yeah.
past two houses, I think, it's a huge retaining wall, which is very
Yeah, and of
similar.
course, the landing and so forth, you see that type of thing. Yeah, and the pervious material is kind of interesting. It's inexpensive and it allows the water to percolate through. So we're being responsible about stormwater runoff and so forth. That's it in a nutshell.
Looks good.
It looks good, I agree with what they said. I agree with Michael's concern about the consistency in stone, in the existing and the new one. It's something, I don't know if it's gonna be easy to reconcile, but I guess cost is an issue, and
But it's all new retaining wall. I mean, we're not matching existing, is that what you're suggesting? or-
Well, no, I was just, one of your photos has a wall. I don't know if this is your property,
Oh, that, I'm
maybe
sorry.
not.
Yeah, it is beyond the wall, yes, I'm sorry.
Okay.
Yes, that's stone.
and there is
yeah.
a character in the Palisade
Yeah.
Street of existing stone that
Yes, you're right.
try to replicate that is gonna be.
Well, it varies. Some of the houses further up the street have some very nice older walls, and some have been completely
That's what I was
replaced.
talking about.
So when you're further up the hill, right across from the bocce court, there's a few houses that have these very steep retaining walls, and one or two of them have
That's
10 or
right.
12-foot natural stone walls, and they're quite beautiful. And then one or two they've been replaced with block, and they're the opposite of what I just described. So, I mean, the idea is obviously that we would like this to be more in the direction of the former description.
Right.
And so I would like to find a way that we can quantify that and move, so that you can move ahead and not, we don't want to require you to use natural stone if that's
Right.
not in your budget, and we understand that.
Right.
So perhaps we
What are you
just,
suggesting?
that if this is a kind of mosaic approach and, this sort of appearance is what ultimately you plan to build, whether it's a system or another type that makes more sense for you for whatever reason, then we just put that into the approval and
Right.
move on, if you're happy with that.
Yeah, it matches
Yeah,
that, basically. Yes, that's the intent, yeah.
Okay. I'd like to make a motion, we approve this as submitted, and the retaining wall material be the Versalock, mosaic, or some equivalent. Yeah.
You can have it all.
Do I have a second?
I think you.
Yair, seconds, all in favor?
I don't have one.
Unanimous, thank you.
Thanks.
Lenore, you came in too late.
You missed it. Good luck. I just congratulate. It looks very nice.
It needs to be done.
Probably, but I like the project. Good seeing you.
15 Highland, please.
You guys ready, or? Yeah. Oh, this thing, turn it off.
Is the light on?
Okay, how's that?
Oh, perfect.
Okay, this is a two-story, oops,
This side.
yeah, okay. Two-story addition. Almost doubling the footprint. The house is very narrow and really almost mirroring the front elevation. It has two double hung windows on the second floor. And I just took that same spacing and copied it over to the new addition. And there's like a picture window on the first floor. But like I said, basically doubling the size of the house, the elevation of the house. And the front yard, we were too close as far as the standard setback of 20 feet goes. So we used the average of the block and hired a land surveyor to, something about 5 or 6 houses on the block. And the average came out to be, I don't know, 12 or something.
I have 12.8.
Yeah, 12.8. So we are, yeah, we're more than that average. We're at 15 on the corner of where the new addition starts. So that's how we met the front yard setback. We actually reduced the impervious surfaces because of this concrete paving and things that I removed, so that number actually went down. The style of the house is stucco right now. It's painted light blue and has purple trim. I'm sorry I didn't give you any color pictures.
Okay.
I was kind of hoping people drove by, I don't know if you guys do that or not. Anyway, so the house is light blue with purple, and the window casing is a purple trim. So this is the existing house here. I don't know if you can see the arrow, but that's the existing, and the new house is here. So, I'm going to plant some shrubs to match the existing, just some low shrubs across the front. And, presently the house has a hip roof, and we're going to continue with that theme. The roof gets more complicated. I don't know if you call it a complicated hip, or I think the shingles are kind of brownish. I had the color specified here.
Yeah, we did.
Timberline weathered wood. So it's really just matching what's there and expanding it. We have a dark sky light on the side. This is the left side elevation, which is west. And that will really kind of look the same. The profile from the left side is identical. We're just kind of extruding that out. And the back and the right side, the back goes over also. I don't know if you guys care about the back too much. But that's about it. Be happy to answer any questions.
Well, I have a couple of concerns. When I look at the residential design guidelines, which is one of the documents we use to measure, amongst other things, appropriate process and approach to major alterations or major additions, which this would constitute a major addition. And the design guidelines there are 3 or 4 parts, and I'm going to paraphrase because I didn't bring mine with me, but I did write some notes down. The first guideline is when possible, addition should be placed to the rear so as to not interfere with the original facade. So, you know, of course, there's a when possible aspect of that. I think that in this case, this probably is possible to meet that. Another, let me go through these, and then you can address them. The second is to maintain a consistent roof line, which I don't think there's really a problem here. But the third is that additions should be constructed as new wings to existing buildings rather than vastly altering the building form. And again, that sort of speaks towards the first one, which is that in general, the way that we're asked to review this, a big addition, is that you don't expand the whole building, but you add wings, you build sections, and you try to put those things towards the rear. So it looks to me as though this is not conforming to those guidelines, and so
The lot is very steep.
okay.
Lot is, I don't know what to picture, that, I don't have any topo lines on this, but this is a retaining wall that's about 5 feet high, and it steps up from there. This is
It's higher than 5 feet.
36 feet, 8 feet, this is like a 20 degree, 25 degree pitch sloping. If this was their contours, they would just be lines. I mean, this back here is, I don't know, 15 feet higher than, it's a steep lot, you can't really.
David, right? That's
Yes.
I think I agree with Michael in general, that's my first reaction.
Mhm.
But just to reinforce what he's saying about the character of the house, I think it's the character of the streetscape that is
Well, the house is
being-
very narrow.
Right, but there is a pattern of houses with this enclosed porch.
Well, those
that-
are three kit houses, like
Yeah.
from the 40s or something.
This
They're
is-
like Sears and Roebuck's houses, and there's, that neighborhood is defined by the character of those houses, and your lot happens to be a much larger one than the two adjacent, which are
And
very,
if I-
very narrow.
If I see the character of this image, this photograph.
Yeah.
Which is it's an interesting photograph in terms of the character of the house, and especially this is the character of the streetscape. When I see the overall house, what you did is totally consistency with materials, roof lights is okay, but there is a missing some articulation that I think will respect the scale of the streetscape and adding your proposed two additions. I think I'm not opposed to the idea of having a two-story addition. The problem is, I think it cannot be just a blank wall, continuous wall, because you change the character of the streetscape.
Well, we can't really come forward. I would like to, step it forward or step it back, but if I were to come forward, I would be able to.
Come backward.
I can't. This house is very small, and the New York City, I design things in plan view mostly, and that's really the function of the house. The bedroom we're creating is only, 10 feet deep, and that's in this area, that's a bedroom.
Yeah, I
We're
see.
creating a bedroom,
I
a
see,
family
I see,
room.
I see
And
what
I can show you the plan, but that bedroom is tiny. I don't like that bedroom the way it is. So I had the idea to step the house forward to make a break. But then
cannot,
I would be over the front yard setback.
No, but let's say you have this house,
Mhm.
you have this addition, right? And if you break it like this, you won't be able to do it?
I don't really see the purpose. I mean,
No, the purpose is.
I have a break in the roof.
Okay, I'll tell you what the
I have
purpose is.
variation in the roof.
I'll tell you what the purpose is. The purpose is if you keep this line, and I'm speaking by, my opinion. This is the purpose. If you keep the original, this as a kind of, not trying to maintain the character of streetscape that is there, and just receding this mass.
I can't push, that would destroy the bedroom, then you'd have like a 6-foot bedroom.
Let me
I
see.
mean, please take a look at the plan. It's very tight, and it's very difficult to work this out. I would have to do all kinds of setbacks and bumps, so I don't have the room to do that.
Maybe changing the material.
Some way you can break the facade?
Did you see what that?
Yeah, even if it's a square bay, you know, in the living room.
See, what I'm trying to do is just to keep this
Yeah.
module, because this kind of is consistent with the streetscape
Right.
module, and trying to,
Not only that, it'll be easier for him not to have to patch that stucco.
right. Oh, I see.
You know, the paint will cover where the patching there is, and it'll be patched flush. And you're not gonna see patchwork. I understand what you're saying about some type of, you know, articulation and breaking, but I just don't know.
What
really-
about like a bay at the family room where you have the triple window to have a hip roof over it to match the porch? At least breaks up the, would you be willing to do that?
Yeah, we
Something
can do
like
something
that?
like that, that might help.
Anything to break up the facade,
Particular design of the windows, that's, you know.
even if it's a square bay with a hip roof to match.
That could help.
I don't want to add to the expense.
I'm open to ideas, I just, like I said, if you, it's tight, you know, that site is, you know, it's a small footprint, and the stair that goes up, that took some space, I lost space with
The
that.
entry would be hard if you had to push it back, you know, I think Michael is right about wanting to push it back. Unfortunately, I looked at the plan and, you know,
The rooms are tiny, it's just,
you would not have access if you pushed the family room back, because that's the only access you have,
well,
right?
it's really the bedroom that drives everything, so you look
Yeah,
at
this
upstairs.
and the bedroom,
Yeah, what's that dimension there, it's 10-1.
yeah.
I can't, I don't even like 10 foot
And then
bedroom.
this too, right? And because
Yeah, that too, and that has to be 3 feet by the code.
Why can't this whole thing be shifted?
Yeah.
So, if I'm not mistaken, you're adding, you know, this area here,
Yes.
this area shifts, and then you've achieved a break, and I don't like to, you're an architect, you know what that means. My intention here is just to provide you with what I see as a sort of incongruence between what the guidelines are telling us and what I'm seeing on paper. And so I don't want to tell you what the solution is, I want to sort of push you to,
What do I do with my access? This, we're stuck with
maybe
this
this
stair.
stays, if you just push the second story over, you'll get the articulation, you know, just enough of
Which one?
the second floor bedroom. You're saying the stairs are in the way?
No, the stairs are here. So let's say that you go into this bedroom, like, anywhere you want. Go anywhere, it's
This
fine.
stair, if I push this back, it cuts
No,
off
no,
this.
the stairs is stays, this stays in its place.
Yeah,
This
but you're
point
saying
shifts.
Push this wall back or no?
Yeah, you push it back.
Yeah, but then what happens to that car door?
Wait, one thing at a time. This is the first time we're seeing. All we're trying to achieve is keeping this character. And I believe that it's a solvable problem, because, you know, there is something, I drove a couple of times yesterday. So there is some movement to the street. Now you bring this, you know, double front, massive.
Those houses are small because they're on narrow lots. His lot is triple, I mean, his,
Yeah, but those narrow lots created
you're stuck with a narrow house because your neighbor's narrow, I don't think his
No.
lot is wide.
No, what
Why
I'm
would you
saying
be
is-
stuck with that?
no one's saying you can't build on it. That's not.
All I'm saying is, that for whatever reasons, that created a character to the street. Now, you can decide to break the character because you bring something of better
I'm not
value.
too crazy about the character of the street, to be honest with you. Is this
So
a
then-
beautiful neighborhood? I
But
mean,
I'm not crazy about your proposal either, so we have to work out some kind of
I mean, it's gonna
compromise.
look better than the houses next door, I think, when it's done.
I
It
doubt
seems like
it.
you're getting stuck in
It's
like,
not
you
that
got
you're getting-
skinny little houses on little tiny lots, and you're saying you gotta replicate that because
There is-
it's
No,
nice.
I'm not saying that as skinning little houses, you have to replicate it. You are doing a bigger house, certainly. That all I'm saying is the street character, I think it's a positive value to the street. It's little houses, it is what it is, it's the street that you chose to live. That's
Well, you bought
fine.
it by price, probably.
Yeah, I think it's a great street. But it doesn't matter. All I'm saying is, you're entitled to do the two-story addition. Your proposal is not that great.
What happens to my bedroom if I push that wall
You
back?
you look, the bedroom is, now it's what,
It's
10 feet?
Which stinks.
Yeah, sure. 10 feet you push it, and then you push the master bedroom a little bit off, and you keep the same square footage. You have the closet here, and you push it, you have 10 feet here. Look, you don't have to do this. Definitely not to.
I mean,
All I'm saying is-
I'm stuck with this stair here.
You can move the closets in that
That really
room.
has to be there, because we have to keep this existing stair, and this is our
Yes.
only access point, so this wall is fixed.
Yes.
And so,
So, but the bedroom is it's big.
Move the closets in that corner then.
Yeah, that's it.
you're
Along the
killing,
stairs.
function just to make a step in elevation. It seems like you're putting a cart before the horse. I work in plan. This is a practical project.
Yeah, but you have
This
to
is
work.
not,
That's true, but it's like it's not only the plan that matters. It's also the street. It's also the volume. It's the massing. It's architecture.
I think it's a nice elevation.
But when you're, I'm sorry, when you're suggesting moving this entire thing back, is that just the second floor?
All I'm
First
saying
floor?
is that
Both. So
we are
because
not-
the idea is that
David, we're not trying to design for you here.
something of the original
Yeah.
It
structure.
can't be done that
The
way.
problem is that if you move that back, you run
I have a
into
corridor
the
right here. I mean, like I said,
No,
how do I cut
look,
through
I'm not telling you. I'm not coming with a 5-minute solution here of a problem that you.
I mean, I gotta spend.
Touch the-
Who pays for this?
Let's have one
Like,
conversation.
30 hours on this. You're talking thousands of dollars to redesign this? I mean, it's my suggestion, but it can be practical. This is a practical house. He has a very tight budget for this. I mean, even something like a minor bathroom, is looking, I can do the bathroom. We just don't do it. He has a very strict budget, and, you know, this is not a high-end, make it beautiful house. This is practical. This is practical living.
No, I disagree.
That's what it
Practical and
is.
beauty they have to go together.
Okay, but I mean, as far as pushing it back and stuff, you know.
I didn't say that pushing it back is the only solution. I'd say that it might be a solution.
Foundation, when you start making things that aren't square, boom, the concrete contractor wants a couple $1,000s more, because you're setting your forms back, you're doing different things, you're jogging things.
That may be the case, but we still have a guideline that we're asked to follow. And if that costs you more money to build,
Yeah,
then
that's-
that's the cost of
That's
doing
so-
work in
that's
this.
so subjective.
I mean,
Pushing the foundation is gonna cost more money?
Well, I don't, I mean, he's saying that
Yeah,
the
you're
form work
stepping
is
through,
additional
stepping
money, which
things.
doesn't sound that
Can I ask one
out of whack to
question?
me, but.
Sure.
It's possible that you just push the second floor back so that you have an overhang on the back side. It might help you to have the same kind of roof, but it's study. Where you then don't have to worry about the foundation. The foundation can stay where it is, and it's a porch overhang where the back retaining wall is. But take a look at that. That might work out without changing dimensions, without changing the downstairs.
But if
I
I push
agree
it
with
back,
you,
then
Tim.
what do I have, like a little shed roof?
Then you would have.
A little shed roof in here?
Not a shed roof, similar kind of hip roof that's existing on the house now,
Yes.
which might work.
Okay, I mean, yeah. I just don't know if that's a bedroom up top.
If that's
That's a bad
acceptable
solution.
to the client and if that works in terms of elevation. I think it does need some kind of break, because if you look, these are 4 square houses. These are traditional, whatever you want to call them. Sears house.
I don't know, you can't make a silk purse out of a sow's ear. I mean, like I said, you can't make a silk purse out of a sow's ear.
Yeah, but also
You
you
know.
can't just decide that the rules don't apply because for.
I'm saying the rules are subjective.
Sure, they are, and we don't find that this meets our subjective criteria of those.
And what specifically was it about the?
That there is no, I read a couple of guidelines, so I'd just be curious. So how does this meet those guidelines? Explain that. How does altering the house in this way
It has a
conform to the
style.
residential design guidelines that I read?
I don't happen to off the top of my head what you read, but I mean,
What should I read again?
the window styles, I mean, the roof style is in that list of acceptable roof styles. Double hung windows, I mean, it has, the scale, it's the same thing, it's just expanding, it's mirroring it.
I know, it's an extrusion of the existing house, which is exactly what the design guidelines is pushing against. The design guideline says additions should be constructed as new wings to existing buildings rather than vastly altering the building form. And this is not a new wing, this is an extrusion of the existing form. And that's the issue here.
Because it's not a wing.
It's not a wing, it's just, you just
So what's the
pulled the
definition of a
house.
wing, because it's set back?
I mean, there's a change, there are actually some diagrams of how to approach it. And they're about scaling down, pushing back, they're about facade articulation. They're decidedly not about
The
extrusion.
house is not that wide. I mean, Yonkers.
No, I know,
I
it's
don't
a
think the
tiny
house is-
house, and I'm sympathetic because I also live in Ferry.
And by the way, Yonkers has a rule in their zoning code about setbacks. They say a facade can't be more than 30 feet. If over 30 feet, you have to do a setback. I'll bet you this is not 30 feet.
But we're not in Yonkers.
It's an
It's
example of
irrelevant.
someone who's trying to create some articulation with the number that we can measure, that we can quantify, that they, I mean, if you're telling Yonkers they don't know what they're doing, they put some
No,
thought into
it's
this.
just that I don't know the Yonkers, but it's irrelevant to this conversation.
No, it is relevant because
No,
it's
it
it's
may
an
be
architectural,
relevant.
it's the exact same thing.
It might
They
be
thought
relevant
about
if we learn
this.
something about it. The problem is this.
They say
I-
30 feet is the dimension, and before you do a setback.
Then
So
I-
by that quantification, this would not need a setback.
I like the west elevation, I like the east elevation. I don't have a problem with that. I don't have a problem with either the rear elevation. I have a problem with the front elevation that takes away. Only just by doing this line that I did, it makes it better. In my opinion.
By pushing it
No,
back.
no, just the line, just my line on the drawing makes it better. All I'm saying is, it has to be some kind of articulation for this to work. The way it's presented, it doesn't convince me that fits in the streetscape.
Okay.
It might be a couple of hours, not 30 hours of redoing, it might be just a small idea like,
You guys
like
are
Deep
just
T
looking
said.
at this and you're not even considering the plan. You're not seeing the functionality of the space, which is 95% of why we're doing this, to get more space for those young children. I mean, I'll redesign it. I mean, so I get the message. I hear you and I get it. But I'm just saying that that's what it is. He has young children, a tight budget, and we're creating a very tiny bedroom.
You're not changing the budget, I'm sorry.
It changes. Everything beyond a box, deviating a box, raises costs.
How so?
Because things cost more when you set things back, when you can complicate things.
Wow. I also price houses, and I price construction, and it doesn't change
You would
much.
charge the same for a box as you would something that's set back
It's
and
square
overhang.
footage.
No, it's not square footage. No
It's
contractors
the
price
angle.
things in square footage. They price things by how long, how much time.
Try
it
to
takes
bring a
do
few
it.
contractors, maybe I'll be convinced otherwise. We are not talking about major,
I'll redo it.
the bottom line is we're trying to get your approval as soon as possible. I understand it takes an extra effort, and that may have a cost, I understand that. Unfortunately, I'm not
I'm just saying
convinced that this is the.
You're driving the
innovation.
project from the way it looks from the front. I drive the project from plain view in a practical space.
You can drive it any way you want, as long as you convince us that it's acceptable and beautiful, that's all.
Beautiful is a stretch. Okay, I mean, I'm gonna leave
Make it
now.
convincing,
Turn this off,
you know.
But,
You can't turn it off.
we'll redo it. Don't turn it off? Well, I'm gonna stop talking.
Then leave the room.
Okay.
Are you-
Anything else I can
I just have a
answer?
question or two. Are you suggesting, though, once again, I think, Ms. Shaw, you suggested perhaps that the second floor could be set back without necessarily the first
That
floor?
might work.
That might work.
With the same kind of hip roof on the first floor,
Right.
because the first floor, then you have a break in there, but I'm not sure that's a study.
You're not sure that's a...
I'm not sure how it's gonna look. The architect needs to study that, so.
But I take the point my architect is making regarding cost as well, for sure, because I mean, we have been looking into this with contractors, you know, being a box versus, you know, a setback for an entire section of it, you know. He's otherwise...
And I did raise the issue, remember? David, I did not talk about setback a little bit? I think we did. I did raise that issue though. I thought about setting it back.
I think that
and
might
popping it
help the
forward.
massing.
Well, I wanted to pop it forward, but like I said, I can't because of the zoning. I can't bring it forward. So, but okay, we'll look at it. What choice do I have? I mean, okay, thank you.
Do we...
Any other comments?
Can I just-
Yeah, I'll make a motion that we continue to the next meeting. Do I have a second? Yeah, you're all in favor? Unanimous? We'll look at this. We're all here 2 weeks,
23rd.
23rd. If you're ready then, we can do again then.
Okay, thanks.
10 Appleton Place.
Good evening, board members. My name is Greg McWilliams. I'm an architect representing the homeowner. Recently, we attained site plan approval for this pool from the planning board, and we're here tonight for fencing. The fencing is serving two purposes. First and foremost, it's required by the building code for an enclosure around the property. So, and secondly, we're trying to relate to existing aesthetic items in terms of the choice of the fence. I will go over that. Excuse me. The markups that I submitted to the board show a site plan where there's some yellow highlighting in one area and there's some orange highlighting in another. I'd like to just show these two photos to the chairman. This is looking towards the right side property line where the orange is indicated, and this is looking to the left where the yellow is indicated. And what that represents is on the right side, the homeowners planted a row of 7 and 8 foot coniferous evergreen trees in from the property line. They're there, they're in place. On the other side yard, those are existing deciduous seasonal plantings that in the summertime are, excuse me, obviously good in terms of screening and everything else, but as you can see in the off-season, you know, it's kind of a drab color and everything else. What the homeowner wanted to do was basically a fence that kind of disappears behind the evergreens on the right side. That'd be a black chain link. That would come down and match and tie into the existing black chain link, which is at the rear of the property that exists right now. Along this side is the seasonal planting. You see the more drab color. They would like to have something more aesthetic, and that's the solid vinyl fence that you see in your cuts right there. Be along this side, it returns to the house, and on this side, it comes in and back into the house. That would be solid as well. Excuse me. The house sits down from the street. And not that there's any great vistas from people walking along here, but it does go down. They wanted a 6 foot fence between the house and the property line on each side. There would be a 4 foot single gate on this side, a double 4 foot gate over here. This is for purposes of getting equipment in, lawnmowers and things like that. So this is more of a functional thing.
I think it looks acceptable.
Ed, is there any compliance issues that you see? I don't see anything.
No, everything is behind the house, nothing higher than 6 foot. It's fine.
Good, I'd like to make a motion, we approve this as submitted. Do I have a second? Yair, all in favor? Unanimous? Thank you. There you go.
Thank you very much.
Uh, 72 Buena Vista.
pointer?
Hello, I'm Michael Lewis, the architect on the project. This is a modest addition to expand the kitchen at 72 Buena Vista Drive. That gray area right there is the addition. It's a little over 100 feet. Here are photos of the property. I guess they're a little bit difficult to see, but of course the top view and the front view. The addition occurs right on the side. There's also a garage right there, which I think will show up in the next slide. So looking at the front of the house from the north edge a little bit, the house is facing west. You can see there's just this area in here that, although it looks fairly narrow here in the photograph, there's enough room there to bump out. I think it's 4'7", a very modest addition. This is the back of the house, and so the addition would be there. And this is looking between the garage and the house, so it would occur in this area right here. There's an existing extension on the other side of the house, sort of a solarium garden room. And so we're just going to mock the same molding details that exist there. The house is a really nice center hall colonial. It has beautiful detail around. We're just going to tap into that and continue the same finishes and colors.
You did the dormer in the back. We just recently approved the dormers, right? In the front?
Yes, correct.
The big one?
The dormers, yeah.
Here's the existing plan. You can see the line here. Here you can see that the dashed line indicates the steel beam that's going to carry the exterior facade above, and here's the bump out. And here's the elevation with the small addition. Again, it's tucked up between the houses. It's set back from the front quite a bit. It's actually not readily in view from the street. You can't see it if you look for it, but it's sort of in between the garage and the house, and not really sticking out much. But we're just picking up the same details and same elevations that are occurring on the other side of the house. We're adding a wing. In the plans we submitted initially, we showed a blank wall here on the west end of the addition, but in the period since we submitted and now, we decided it would be better to include a window there. Not only because it looks better on the outside, but also it affords a view of the driveway from the new kitchen. So now in the drawings that we'd like to submit for the building permit, we'll include that window, and we're hoping that if the project is approved as part of the resolution, we can include that window on the west end of the addition.
So you lose those upper cabinets inside?
We lose a little bit of it. Yeah, we lose about 30 inches of the cabinet, just enough to get a little window in there.
But it does make a stronger elevation. I mean, even though, I mean, it's funny. It's you really can't see it, but I mean, when you look at true elevation, it's this one thing that stands out. I didn't mention anything because I see you don't have a terrible amount of upper cabinets, and so I understand why it was left out. But I think it's a better elevation.
Right, I talked it over with the owners, and they were okay to lose a cabinet. The kitchen will be nicer all around, from the outside and the inside, I think. That's about it.
I think it looks great, obviously. So,
It looks good.
Criticism.
Go ahead. Any comment?
Okay, I'd like to make a motion to approve this as submitted using the new plans. I'm assuming, Ed, you have those?
I haven't submitted them yet, but
I've got the note.
I will.
So we'll just, I don't know if that's necessary. I mean, eventually you'll need for permit, but I think we can just approve with a note on the drawings we have, so you don't have to send in new drawings at this point. Do I have a second? I don't know if I made a motion. I make a motion that we approve this as submitted with this minor, with the window on the west elevation of the kitchen. Second? Yair, all in favor? Unanimous? Thank you. Everybody. It's the Belden Avenue Historic Review.
Are we doing that?
We want to wait till the end, or are we going to look at?
We can do both. They're both on Belden, so
Well,
we can do the same.
Patty came late, so you've been waiting longer, so come on up, 82 Belden Avenue Historic Review, please.
Sonia Turjanian, 43 Belden Avenue.
I think the mic is off somehow.
Sonia Turjanian, 43 Belden Avenue. I'm here tonight just to formally submit our application to formally designate Belden Avenue, our block of Belden Avenue, a historic district according to what's currently in the code, which says that we just need 25% of the owners to be on board with it, which we have, and that we send certified letters to all the homeowners letting them know, and also have signatures of, certain percentage of owners that they're okay with this. So from the people I've talked to, I would say we have 100% approval among the homeowners. So that's why I'm here. And so I guess the next step after this would be to go to the Board of Trustees. And it's a little complicated because the mayor is in the process of forming an ad hoc task force to take this a little bit further and decide what exactly a historic district means in Dobbs Ferry. So we're doing these in parallel. I want to go ahead and have this application in just so that we can protect the properties on our block in case more of them come on the market in the next year or so, and we need to talk about things like maybe a moratorium on demolition or things like that. So that's my thinking.
Just a question is, when you say here, landmark or district designation, what do you mean by application for historic landmark or district? Or, what's or means?
I think that comes from Ed.
Landmark historic.
Landmark or district designation.
That is, that's how it's written in the code. That section of the code is just sort of under that general heading. So you have the option of naming one property as a landmark or a group of properties as a district.
That's where I'm going, my comment is going to, because it's very different to designate a house as a landmark,
right,
or the structure as a landmark, or the district as an area, which I think, my opinion, I'll be more inclined or more supportive of a district rather than a house.
Right.
Because again, going back to what I was saying before, it's a character is created by, a group of houses.
Sure.
It's not by one house by itself. It happens that there are many houses that with great value here, but the group is very interesting. Even the house around the corner from Belden, behind you, the brick house, I think it's a very lovely house. I would love to see that protected too in the district designation.
Yeah.
And even going all the way to our next application that has to have some kind of impact and reinforce each other. But anyway, it's not only because of a house has historical value that it was built in 1834 or whatever it is, has to be protected. It has to be protected because of its value, not because of its date.
Right.
Only.
I agree.
So what do we have to do?
I guess I mean, that's the next question is, since this has nothing about the meaning of the historic designation, I mean, I don't think any of us have any issues with the houses that have been selected for this zone. I mean, they're all, could clearly work for either, right? As a house worthy of individual historic landmark, or as a group, as a part of a district designation.
Yeah, but the house on the corner also, it's
I agree. There's also some on Sherman that could meet this.
Sure,
This
yeah.
house, this house at Broadway and Belden, and also this one on Broadway and Belden, although there's been some renovations. The interior is really amazing.
But, you know, there is.
But it has a lot of interesting character. It's-
Yeah, and one of the things that the task force is going to do is decide how do we determine the edges
Right.
of the historic district.
Saying is, what it has to look like more like of an area
Mhm.
than individual houses.
Yeah, and I think it'll be easy to expand the district.
And the reason is?
You can name one property historic or landmark or any group of houses. So this is an application before you, and she has designated the houses that she wants named historic. Now it's up to you to just agree that with her application, that these could be named historic and send it on to the Board of Trustees.
That's a fairly simple thing
Yeah.
to.
Makes sense to me.
Yeah, please, Patty. I'm sure you have some insight.
Patty Steinschneider, as a person who's often blamed for having been involved in the writing of the new code, I'll put it that way. I mean, this was very important to us when we did the new code. I mean, we took this so seriously, we changed the name of this board from being the Architectural Review Board to being the Architectural and Historical Review Board.
It has its own unintended consequences.
It seems to. And there's something about always beware unintended consequences, but that's another thing. But what they've put together here, I think, is exactly what we had in mind of how something like this would go. So they've looked at their street, they've got good rationale for why the houses they've selected are perhaps the core of what could be a larger historic district, but the mistake we so often make is let's wait until we've done this all the way through and it'll get turned into this great big thing, and then people will be here opposing historical houses or something. So, you know, what I think the right thing to do here is, if you believe there's merit to what their request is, that you support that request and say, we agree that this is a good action, that this core district should be identified, and if it expands in the future, based on additional studies that are done of other homes, which I agree totally. I mean, personally, I'd go from Ashford Avenue to Broadway to the end of Saranac, not quite all the way. There's a couple of houses there, I think I would draw the line and not put them in. But then all the way over to, from Seneca to Saranac, that whole block, or series of blocks, it's interesting. Not only is it got some really great architecture, but it's a wonderful form of a kind of village urbanism. It's got the alleys behind the buildings, accommodating the garages and cars. It's baffling to me that could exist in Dobbs Ferry in the 1870s. And then somehow when we went to build all these other blocks, all the way out to Ashford Avenue, nobody said, well, let's look at this pattern because it's such a classic, great urban pattern. So I think it's got all kinds of merit, not just the houses, but the way it's arranged, the character of the streets. I think it's a great application. I would love to see it further on, and then eventually I think we could work on how big that district actually gets. Thank you.
And I noticed that 29 Belden is on the market.
29 has been sold, yeah.
Sold?
Yeah.
So that's.
And I didn't get it.
That's
and I bid $725.
Everybody in town bid on that house.
I went 200 over ask as my initial offer, and I didn't make it to the second round.
So is there a motion that we make, or should we just make should we make a written recommendation?
Make a motion to make a recommendation and write a letter to the Board of Trustees.
Any comments?
No, I think it's a great idea.
Yeah.
And what you have over here makes complete sense to me. You know, I think we should start with the core.
Yeah, where we have a lot of consensus.
Yeah, it's a good logic.
You've done a great
Expanding
job.
it, I don't know how to tell people what this is gonna mean for them down the road, because we haven't put the rules in place yet, so talking to the other neighbors on the other streets would be very difficult at this point, because I don't have anything to say, so.
You know what, you're making waves, you're sort of wading your way through it, so
Right, exactly.
you've done a great job.
Yeah, thank you.
It's a lot of effort, but I think it's totally worth it.
Thank you.
Maybe this will set a precedent.
I hope so.
Other towns, other places.
Yeah.
In our own. Okay, I'd like to make a motion that we approve the application to support this historic district designation to the Board of Trustees. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Yair, all in favor? Unanimous. We'll follow up with a letter to the Board of Trustees with our recommendation, and I'm sure we will continue this.
Great, and just quickly, I do need one of you on my task force. It does not necessarily mean a huge time commitment. I'm hoping we can do a lot of things by email, but it would be great to have your support as we start working to decide what this means and how we're going to be creating guidelines for review, for design review, so we really need your participation in that. So the mayor's going to be announcing the ad hoc committee tomorrow night, and he would like to have one of you on the list to announce. So
We'll discuss it.
okay. If you could let me know by
We'll
tomorrow.
talk about it after the meeting, and
Great.
And then
We take we put sticks and.
yeah, or
Whichever one of you doesn't already feel that you're doing enough.
Yeah, whichever one of you is getting the most sleep currently. All right, thank you very much.
Thank you, good luck.
Thanks.
Great, excellent.
Thanks for waiting. Next up, who's left? 82 Belden.
82 Belden. Let's see. Let me go over here, because I think that works a little better on this one. Okay. Basically, to orient you, we've got Broadway right here, and here's Belden coming down. This actually, I should have put this up to the previous thing, because this kind of shows that whole neighborhood. This is kind of zooming in here where Saranac hits. You see where the golf course is. This is the house. It backs up to South Lane, which is pretty cool. I think I'll come back to some of these. Let me show you some photographs of the house first. This is the house. Some people say it was used for the Flintstones as the model for their house. It certainly has an interesting look. It's a very quirky little house. I don't think it has enough historic significance to it to make it an issue for this neighborhood. This is the addition that was built on the back, which is really not great. And this whole thing comes down. The whole second floor comes off. We're really totally rebuilding this house. I'm standing at the backyard now, my back to South Lane. You see the golf course out in front. Just more shots of it. This is the yard that comes up this hill up to South Lane. We've shown 2 retaining walls to kind of control that. This is the house that's immediately to the east, which actually kind of fronts onto the little cul-de-sac that goes back in there. Actually, that's one that's next to the cul-de-sac. This is the house that's immediately next door. This is the house that's immediately to the west of the existing house. And one of the things I'm going to suggest is that these 3 houses are kind of like the subject house, kind of an anomaly if you look at this neighborhood. If this neighborhood was designated historic district, you'd say that those 4 houses were houses that were built out of keeping with the character of the street. This is the next house after you come up the hill. Several of the houses are small in the neighborhood. Most of them are 2 stories with a finished attic. And even the houses that are kind of, I mean, this one's obviously in repair, they're working on it, but even these smaller houses have kind of a really nice character to them. This, I think, is an example of the kind of thing that we're hoping with the historic district. Maybe this kind of treatment would be handled differently in the future. You know, the porch that was there, I'm sure, had a very different feel to it. But as you get closer to Broadway, you start getting some really just phenomenal houses. I mean, these 2 are, I mean, they justify, I think, the historic character by themselves. You've got stucco, you've got clapboard. In the neighborhood, you've got interesting roof lines. This is the house across the street that's up the street. This is the house that's just been sold, which is anything but a tear down. It is a great house that would be easy to restore. Here's some other houses, but you get the sense of basically 2 stories, finished attic, space, front porch, house lifted up off the ground. Some of the other houses that need a little bit of work. And then, of course, this is what's out in front of the house, looking out across the golf course, which is one of the reasons that the Vulitites purchased this property. They felt that it really, you know, just it was a great location being that close to that open view, which is a little bit unusual. Another one of those kind of weird questions, like you've got this fabulous setting, and I would have thought that the houses that would have gotten built around the golf course would have all been larger, kind of more substantial homes, but that's not what happened. Let's see, just take it to, well, I don't think you need to see any of this stuff, right? Landscaping, all that. Basically, what we're doing with the floor plan. Yeah, here are some sections coming through. Here's the floor plans. Front porch entrance, front hall, living room, dining room, kitchen, breakfast area, kids play area, pantry, 2-car garage, mudroom on the first floor. Second floor is master bath, closet, home office, laundry room, and 3 bedrooms with 2 baths. We have the ability to get up to the attic. We have, you're definitely in an attic. It's all eaves coming down. It's basically the only part that has an 8-foot ceiling is this center portion and then the dormers. So we've tried to keep it down fairly much. The sections reveal that we're thinking of doing this as a modular. They have had contact with Westchester Modular, who is convinced that they can build this combination hip roof in a modular, which I think is very bold, but other people here in town have done really nice modulars that had some complicated forms to them very well. So I'm hoping that we can do that as well here because it makes a big difference in price. These are some details that we've developed since we made the submission. You haven't gotten these yet, but these we can submit for review the next time if you want to continue it on. It gets into all the details of the soffits, the eaves, the rakes, everything, the porches, how everything's structured. And then what we did is we've got a SketchUp model, which I can actually show. But these are just 4 quick SketchUp views that were taken. Now, we submitted for the Architectural Review Board that was, I don't know if it was the one that was snowed out or the one that we didn't have. We submitted, I think, at the end of January. And at that time, this form came forward on the house and had more of a tower look. Yeah. And the clients wanting to kind of make the house a bit less overstated, perhaps understated, asked if we would take a look at removing that, recessing it back in, and going with basically a flat roof on the house. The style of house that we're going for is kind of one that fits in between a lot of different ideas. I think you'd agree that it's got, effectively it's got what could be referred to as traditional roof lines, massing. The windows, though, although they do all carry the same window height coming around with the trim under the eaves, are larger panels of glass than you would normally find on this house. They don't have divisions in them. They're intentionally meant to be wide open views from the interior, feeling like you've got that large expanse. This kind of a form on the front of the living room is not a traditional form. 4 large plates of glass. It works, those are doors, it works in with the flat roof. So what we're trying to do is strike kind of a balance in what we have been kind of, flirting with this idea of, how do you do things in modern architecture at the same time you're working in traditional places. And I think we've got a good balance with this. I mean, but obviously that's something that you guys will let us know. I don't know if any of you are on TradArc, the listserv. It's been raging since June on this argument between modernism and traditional architecture. And we're actually conducting 3 sessions in our Congress in Dallas at the end of April, beginning of May, which will be directly on this kind of issue. And where does this fall in? Is this one style or another, or is this kind of what we're trying to represent, that blending that works? And the field guide to American houses has recently been reissued, and Virginia's new version has a whole series of chapters which have been added dealing with this exact thing. We're building in the 21st century. We're building with new technologies, new materials, but we're building in older communities that have character. How do you find the balance? So this is how we've tried to accomplish it. This is the back of the house that you see from South Lane. And then the other side, these sides are close enough to the property lines that they really aren't visual. We tried to give enough to it, but it wasn't. Neither one was a wall that made sense to have really large glass on facing out towards the neighbor's home. If I go back, there's one other major issue we need to talk about, which is the sky exposure plan. On the cross section through the long way, we're obviously in great shape with our front and our back when we're near it. On the sides, though, we hit into the eave. On the one side of the house, hits in right past where the wall hits the eave. On the other side of the house, we're hitting about a foot below where the eave is, so we're getting a little corner of that. Part of what's causing us to hit that, because when we first did it, we weren't, was that we correctly measured from the average. What somebody in my office had previously done is they'd run the sky exposure plane from the property line. So they took the line, 10 feet from the property line up and projected it, and if we had that, we would be closer to being in compliance. Because you get the extra height as the property goes up to the sides. But this is the way the code says to do it, so we've done it that way. You should have received a letter that I submitted, which kind of goes into our explanation of why we think this is justified in the modifications to the sky exposure plan. But of course, we defer to you on that and your comments and interests and suggestions.
Well, I think there's a couple things that I'd like to talk about, but I'll just talk about the sky exposure plane since we're on it right now. I mean, we're looking at this, and the one side where your eave penetrates. I think that's a place where we've got some leeway. And then the other side, it's very, very close, and then I looked at your section, and you've got almost a 24-inch floor makeup.
Right.
Which is about 3 times as large a floor makeup.
Twice
the size of a floor makeup that you could otherwise get away with in a wood-framed house like this. And I know that you're talking about a modular system, but it's complexity for the roof geometry may. I don't know. It sounds like it sounds a little bit like a self-created problem.
It definitely is.
And so my question is really like how important is this thing? Why is this thing driving the issue? I don't want it to be a wedge that prevents us from moving forward on some other.
Yeah, I mean, what we're dealing with is purely the cost factors of building the house. The client has met with Westchester Modular. They've gotten excellent numbers from them that I would not be able to come close to in a stick-built house. So they see the value of doing this modular. The challenge with modular is that you need to do it with independent first floor and second floor structures, which duplicates your structure. This is the way every modular we've done. You end up with that double structure. So what you've got is the bottom box has top beams that have a ceiling, and then the box above comes with its floor, so you get, it's actually 22 inches that you get from ceiling to floor, where you would normally expect to have 12.
Are these
And-
going to be existing ceiling joists, or is this new?
No,
I couldn't figure it out.
yeah, basically what we're doing is we're having, for the modular company to be willing to consider putting second floor modular boxes on, they're requiring that we duplicate the kind of framing that they would be setting the boxes on.
So it's going to be a new ceiling?
We have to take, we would take everything down to the top wall. On top of the top wall, we'd be doing a continuous ribbon band, and we'd be putting in the floor structure, or the ceiling structure, independent.
The more important thing is then you can level it.
Right.
Because if it's not level, it
You
becomes a
can't set the
problem.
boxes. So they've been very adamant about that, so that's what gives us that foot, and Michael, you're exactly right. If we didn't have that, we'd be in compliance with the sky exposure plan. You know, we didn't set out to say, let's tweak this and make it just a little bit taller than it should be with this guy.
I know, of course.
Yeah, so what happened is once we started putting these things together, we kind of ended up there. But at the same time, I think, the intent of the sky exposure plan, I think we've met that. And of course, part of that idea of the complicated roof lines of the low-pitched hip coming back is specifically to avoid that wall that would otherwise make you feel like you're kind of overbearing on your two neighbors. If either of the two neighbors' homes were, say, classical in that historic character that the rest of the neighborhood has, I could say, well, I don't see anybody changing this. But if this area is designated historic, and the trade, the transitions that we're seeing going on right now, the house that was recently renovated on Sherman, tremendous financial commitment that those people put into fixing that house up. It's heroic. I think what we're going to find is that the houses on either side of this will also go through a very similar transition, and somebody will buy them and fix them up and put second floors on them, and you'll have homes that work. We comply with our side yards. We're actually 1 foot wider than we need to be on the one side. We've actually excavated down to keep everything as low as we could get it, which is one of the things that actually averages down our measuring point. So if we raise the grade around the house, we'll be able to raise the measuring point, which would give us also less of a penetration to the sky exposure plane. But we're very close to being nothing but even. The rumor is that you guys have thought about that maybe eaves be allowed to penetrate, but I know it's not.
Do you watch these meetings when you're not here?
I watched them several times.
It's just to be consistent with penetrations to the sky exposure plan that are allowed consistently everywhere. It's eaves, cornices,
right,
solar panels.
Yeah, and that's a thing where we've suggested adding to whatever language change there is, which we think makes a lot of sense. I mean, if elements like dormers are part of that, then it doesn't, we really need to include some of these other things. I mean, extending an eve out for, solar shading reasons, all sorts of, there's a
number of people not doing nice details on their houses to avoid penetrating the sky exposure plane, but
we just want to modulate bulk a little bit, and I think, it works very well in some respects, and in other respects, some other techniques could work well. We'll eventually get to that. I don't want to talk about that. I do want to talk about some different ceiling height. Sorry, I'm just realizing this now. There is a shift on the second floor. There's a sort of round plan at play in that you bumped up the living room so you can have a taller ceiling height in the public space to 9-10, and then which is what gives you the 8-foot ceiling in the space above that. But let's say you had you had no Losian concept at play here, and you were to have a plane that defined the second floor. You could
make the second floor even.
You could potentially bring the house down 5 foot. What I'm trying to do is understand this so I don't have to ask you to come back with another compliant drawing.
Okay. What we're doing is the house right now has that split.
Yeah, right here.
Yeah, so if we kind of go quickly to that. what we're picking up on is effectively this height is what we're working with here. What we didn't do is raise this one up to match it. We're raising this up a little bit, but not as much as that one. And what we were able to do is going back with the modular is kind of flip-flop them. So on the living room side, the ceiling will have the taller ceiling that you get here. On this side, we're keeping it down, basically, I think we've got 8 feet in the playroom, standard ceiling height. On the second floor, because what we couldn't do, I shouldn't say couldn't, what we didn't want to do is have variegated roof forms breaking. We wanted to establish a standard level. So what we did is we gave a higher ceiling in the master, so that when you do the 8 feet on the second floor and the 9.9 in the master, you end up with your plate height in the second floor being consistent.
The eaves.
Yeah, so everything can wrap around. It seemed like, to us, it seemed like a way to kind of tie all these interesting things together.
I actually have a couple of questions. First of all, if you go back to your SP4.
Sure.
For some reason, the roof on that looks like the slope is higher, which looks nice, but I'm sure that, I don't know, you're showing a 6 on 12 over here? It just seems like it's a little,
Which one?
Can I go closer?
all of them. Is that drawn at more than a 6 on 12?
It sure should be.
It looks nice over there.
I don't think any of that changed,
Okay.
but it's.
Maybe it's the rendering then.
I don't know, I will admit, when, one of the problems I have in this world is I'm not working in CAD. Everyone else in my office is. So I'm sketching, and I'm assuming that they've gotten it right. So if this is supposed to be 6 and 12, if it looks steeper than 6 and 12, then it would be reduced down, because 6 and 12 is what works with the modular company and all that. But I think it's accurate. I'd be surprised that it's not.
You can take one. I have a label for you.
Okay.
For this house. It's transitional prairie style.
Okay.
It is.
I think
It's transitional prairie style.
transitional.
It
Okay.
definitely
It has
is.
a flavor.
That's number one. Number two, number three, okay?
Yes, it's like
The porch columns look very utilitarian. Can you
Yeah.
please do something with those?
Absolutely,
Thank you.
absolutely, and we've shown those as basically posts at the moment, because we're still
You
working.
call
on
that
the
painted
detail.
posts, and I said,
Yeah,
come
I know,
on.
I think that those, the client, we originally had columns on the front, supporting the front. The client has specifically suggested that we not go that direction, because they don't like that, which, our goal is not to make clients live in houses that we like that they don't. So we said, okay, we'll lose the columns. I think what happened is we had columns where they got limited on the front, and then that turned into posts on the back, but you're right. The posts on the back, if we're not having columns on the front now, can become the
But you
better
still
post.
have one on the front porch, right?
We have a post
This,
on the,
yeah.
yes. It's
It looks
specifically
very
not a
utilitarian.
column.
You just call it
Yeah.
out as a painted, looks like a 4x4 or a 6x6.
Right, so I think, detailing that out better, would absolutely a good idea. I think that'd be great.
I think that the other big question is architectural style. And
Can I make one comment?
yes, please.
Modernism is not a style. Period.
This is true. And I will say another, let's discuss another.
I'm not gonna discuss that
I am a
tonight.
modernist, I recognize my limitations, and we never treated modernism as a style.
I understand that.
In the moment that it's a style, we run away from it.
If I had the ability, financially, I would get you to Dallas, because that's exactly the discussion. And we've got some very strong
But there's
traditionalists.
nothing to discuss. Modernism has never been a style. Style has, okay.
I happen to agree with you that the way it's being perceived as a style is incorrect in the etymology, if you will, of modernism.
Right.
The challenge I'm having is deep structure, which the modernists understood and had when they were first.
When you say modernist, who are you referring to?
I'm going back actually to Wright, Luce.
You're talking about Bajas.
I'm way before Bauhaus. I'm 20 years before Bauhaus. I'm thinking 1895 to 1910. I'm thinking loose, right, maybe very early Corp. You're dealing with people who were, who could, the example I gave was Picasso. Picasso could draw beautifully accurate portraits of people. He chose to paint in a different kind of perspective.
And
because he was adding a whole nother level to the purpose of his artwork. He was not being representational, which at that point had been taken over by the camera.
Well, that's how he got Cubism.
Exactly. So it was another dimension, if you will. It was incorporating my philosophy. It was incorporating time into the artwork. In the same way, I think the early modernists who were trained in deep structure traditionalism were coming to a whole different philosophy of design.
To be modern, it's a way of thinking. It's not a way of detailing. And when it became a style, then you move to the next one.
Right.
That's why that's one of the debates. On the modern MoMA had this problem with became representing modernism as a style in the 20s. So
what's the name of the book? Hitchcock and Johnson's book. What's it called? The International Style.
Tie it back to this, which is, I mean, the reason we talk about styles is it's a codification for the layperson to identify with a cohesive, holistic approach to a building. And so we're not we don't prescribe styles.
Right.
What we prescribe is a total work of architecture.
Yeah.
That's the thing that matters to us. And if you want to know how to address a contemporary house in a traditional neighborhood, I think you have a couple of options. You have the spaceship, right, which is a completely different piece, which capitalizes on its difference between itself and the surrounding neighborhood, or you fit in. Right, and for us, the way that you create a neighborhood that has a certain character, cohesiveness, language is to, and I know some people will disagree with me on the former point, but it's to take one of those two approaches.
Right.
Is to fit in very, very well, and that means, not copying your neighbor, but capitalizing on the style and the history, and which is what we might say if you were between, 24 and 29 Belden or whatever. However, if you came to us with a blob or a spaceship or clad in
titanium,
whatever, and it was a work of architecture that had its own integrity of form, I would be okay with that. I don't know about the other people on the board. I don't know about the neighbors. So what I see as problematic here is that it's not taking either step boldly enough.
I agree.
And so I believe that the smartest approach for a total work here is to choose your direction and follow its logic through to its conclusion.
Well, we've made the commitment in this case, which is to the fit in, but the challenge is.
Just 1 second. The context that you have is still of the 50s. There is a very, very good distinction. The house on the right, I think it's a nice 1950s ranch. That said, the house on the left, needs a little love and care. But
very well put.
And the one that you have now, it's an opportunity to bridge the gap and to do a cohesive transition between the historical Belden to the new Belden.
Right, and that's the intent. That's what we're trying to do.
So I think that the transitional prairie style.
Well, that's what it looks like to me.
It has a flair of Frank Lloyd Wright prairie style.
Well, there's a house in Chicago that looks.
But the big difference.
In Chicago.
Right.
Chicago, Buffalo.
In Chicago.
Or the Buffalo house.
Sure.
But the biggest difference is in the materiality of the house, and this is the problem of this house, which is the stucco. Makes it look cheaper.
Okay, I mean, we've experimented with different materials on the house, and we actually had one that we felt very strong about, that we thought worked well, but it was really not the direction that the client wanted it to go in. And I'll certainly talk.
Which direction?
Well, we did, in fact, there's three houses that we've done in Irvington that would probably be good examples. One of them is on Ferry Street, and what we did there is we have this context of monopoly houses that were built in the 50s and 60s. We went in, we put a second floor on, and the client was definitely, the interior of the house is perfectly modern. It's almost, it's very, very streamlined. Beautiful cabinetry, every line ties together. It's very, very simple. Understated detailing, which was about 2 to 3 times the price of if we could slap some moldings on. What we did on that house is we have stucco on the base up to where the second floor starts. And then on the second floor, we did a 1x6 shiplap with an incredibly tight joint, so that you get the warmth of the wood on the upper portion of the house, and I think it works very successfully. I think
That's more of an arts and crafts style now that you're talking about.
Exactly. And we've often felt that the arts and crafts, which was very modern
also
at the time when it was being done.
Well, that's the definition of modern. Modern is departing from something, just looking into.
So we've often found that arts and crafts is where that helps make that bridge, so you could be in a traditional character neighborhood without looking like you're trying to stand out. I think this neighborhood could be transitional in one way. It's going to be transitional in one direction or the other.
At some point it has.
Yeah.
I welcome your transition, because this is an opportunity for the entire block, all the way to Washington.
Yeah, and what we're looking is a house that helps that inspires that to come out in that direction. So I think we're in the right direction on it. I can see, as you say, the materiality of it, how streamlined it is. I mean, it's something that we can play with. I mean, we've got the clapboard on the sides of the dormers as we speak, so it'd certainly be easy to take another look at that.
Just, the last thing I want to say is, let's try to see if we can keep the sky exposure plane without bulk interference.
Okay. I mean,
we can contemplate dormers, we can contemplate cornices.
Well, dormers were allowed.
I'm saying all the things.
Which is not in the code, but it's the thing that we're all looking at as a reasonable penetration.
I mean, our penetration is about 1 foot high.
I know, it's a slippery slope, though. I mean, because yours is 1 foot, and the next guy who comes in is 18 inches. He says, well, this house next door violates by a foot. What's wrong with 18 inches?
I'd say 18
and then
inches
the next guy comes along and it's 2 feet.
Well, no,
and it's 2.5. I mean, you see where I'm going.
Yeah, but it's a curve that's like that.
And your south elevation,
yeah,
the sky exposure plane is penetrated right in the cornice or the details, which is acceptable.
Well, we're good on that elevation.
It's just here. It's just on the north elevation.
It's the front east corner.
Yes.
But I think that,
So we can certainly try and see if we can do that.
Do we have any leeway with that? Because I would rather not break the eaves. I like the line running through the way you have it.
Our suggestion is to look at this floor, which is 22.5 inches.
Well, knowing with the.
Let's say I end up with 9 feet, as, what do I have there?
9, 10.
9, so if we end up with 9 foot. I mean, and I'm not speaking, my client is going to be the one who tells me yes or no what they want to do on this. But just thinking quickly on it, if we were 9 foot and 8 foot, instead of 9 foot 9 and 8 foot, we would probably be close to compliance.
Yeah, I mean, you've got 9, 10, you've got this 9, 10 and a half.
Yeah.
You've got 10, but that's the garage.
These foundations are existing, right?
Yes. So I'll take a look at that.
I think there's some wiggle room for you that will allow us for this to be perceived in much closer to a purely eve penetration, which I think we're all
Just
Yeah, I think we're very close to it now, but I'm not looking at it.
That's just a stupid CAD mistake. You can tell your
Okay.
whoever is CAD drawing that he reversed it.
No, that laps onto the front.
But this is in front, right?
No, what we did is we brought the roof out 1 foot past that corner.
This is
That cantilever's out, but then the other piece comes out in front of it, because I specifically didn't want to have it feel like it was.
so this window. The window is recessed. This window is
Well, recessed, yeah.
So
This plane comes out 1 foot proud of this plane, so it laps onto both of them. On this side, if you can look at the elevation down here,
That's correct, if you look at the...
this is a flat roof.
Yes.
Something like that. I
Yeah,
see.
the porch
Yeah.
pops out.
right.
That's that.
And I think that's actually important. I know it's incredibly small is an idea, but what the porch sticking out in front of the two masses does is it acts as a band tie as opposed to just another element of the composition. And it brings the attention to the front porch from both directions, which I think is appropriate on the house. You're not convinced?
That could be.
Well, I can talk for hours, and I don't think that's what everybody wants us to be doing. I do enjoy having conversations of that level. And this board, while I think there have been other issues in the past, is getting to a very interesting level of actual talking about.
Thank you.
All architects.
Which I am on the record of saying, most architectural review boards, you do not want to have all architects. You want to have the plumber and somebody else who can sit there, and I think we had a plumber on the board years ago.
For 11 years.
Yep.
Look, as long as people are not blind, it's fine with me.
Do you want to talk about the colors, materials, or any of that?
How about rethinking the materials altogether?
Well, I think some combination of stucco and clapboard is going to likely be how that gets worked. So we've already gotten to colors of those materials. I wouldn't want to leave here, go back, come back next time and show you the colors and say, God, I wish you'd shown us those colors last time because.
Well, sure, let's see so that you can gauge our response. But
Exactly.
But in many ways, this is tied to, a fenestration that's.
The white Anderson, this is flashing, the white and the gray. The roof shingles are the slate blend, which is the upper right or whichever one it is. The stucco color we're going with is the limestone. And the trim, which is AZAC, gets painted what is it, decorator's white, which I think works well with the Anderson white. And then what we've figured for the clapboard is, at the moment, we're talking hardy plank, although what I was starting with was cedar, and we were thinking of something that's dark in the timber bark, which works well with the,
Where is this happening?
just on the sides of the dormers at the moment.
Okay.
So I didn't want to bring the stucco up on the roof.
So this is gray.
Yeah.
This is a kind of
Limestone.
white.
And then the garage doors and the doors, we had looked at the wood, but I think the client's still not convinced of that. I mean, the house that we did in Irvington, this was actually what we did with the siding. So we had, similar with that, which worked really nicely. If we're thinking this is that transitional prairie style? Transitional prairie style?
That's what I said.
Okay, I think that's
It's a
it.
prairie style, but the prairie style is also.
So where are you using
There is
this?
the horizontality that.
That is what I've been proposing for the garage doors and the
Oh,
front,
okay.
and the front door.
The prairie style has some kind of horizontality to it.
Right. Do you know Koch and Koch? Koch. They did a lot of work north Chicago, Evanston, that area, all up into Wilmette, Winnetka. And they were operating at the same time that Wright was getting started. And they actually, this would be consistent with what they were doing. I have always thought they were a step ahead, I think, of where Wright was. Yeah, they never got the fame. They didn't quite have this interesting a social life, perhaps, as.
Or a
I'll
personality.
double check your claim, but Wright is it's a tough competition for anybody.
I've never aspired to try and do it, but I know his work very well, to the extent of also knowing the Oak Park houses that are pretty much Victorian.
Yeah,
A lot of them.
yeah, but you have to go all the way to the Guggenheim and the Johnson.
And the Guggenheim is the example I'm using on the Trout Arc of why it's okay for modern to break the pattern if the pattern of the traditional is strong enough. The Guggenheim is a brilliant building on Fifth Avenue. But if all of the buildings on Fifth Avenue were Guggenheims, it wouldn't work. It needed that structure, that deep structure to break, to have it be the significance and the value.
I'll think about your plan.
Okay. Well, I want you to come to Dallas and not only think about it, talk about it. It's going to be an interesting argument. There's some people who are getting quite, angry at some of this. It hinges around CNU, and CNU's charter says that it's effectively agnostic on style. It is about urban form, it's not about the style of architecture. It allows the architectural style to be what's most appropriate in the hands of the architect, which is personally how I think it should be. But no less than Leon Creer has said, that's a mistake, this should now be corrected. And that CNU's charter should be amended to say that the correct style for architecture is traditional, because you cannot, this is the statement, you cannot create good urbanism with modernism. And I said, I find that really tough, having been to Helsinki and seeing the amazingly beautiful buildings that Aalto did, in a row of buildings 100 years older than what he was doing that were very modern and very beautiful and fit in just perfectly with the context of the traditional style.
We all know those are post-rationalizations for just an aesthetic hang-up on modern architecture. Because it's not a criticism that a building stands out from its neighbors. That's no criticism in and of itself. But that's what's lobbied, and that's what they're talking about. I mean, to me, it's just it's like I don't ask crazy people why they talk to themselves. I mean, it's just
but I also feel that there's, without the knowledge of deep structure, we have too many architects who, if they're Picassos, they can't do the realistic drawing. They're really enamored of CAD and the programs that CAD can do, and I don't know that they understand what the architecture they're creating actually is.
well,
Even some of the ones
Now,
that
see how it turns out.
that's another discussion that would take 24 hours, Patty.
24 months.
24 months.
So let's give you something to go away with and get me out of here in time to have a couple of drinks.
Sounds like a plan. I want a really good party to be here, so.
In that party, they were discussing modern architecture.
Actually, it was the book release party for Mike Leiden, who's written Tactical Urbanism. And he's brilliant, and it's a great book, and it fits in with the whole Jeff Speck's walkability, the idea of what makes great places.
Where do we want to, let's try to tie up a lot of our comments so that, I mean, now that we've all heard each other and we've heard what Patty had to say, just so we can be clear about what the direction we believe is correct here.
Yeah.
I mean, I come to this all the time, and a lot of applicants are asking for us to give them direction kind of nuts and bolts direction. Bring the roof line down, make this window bigger, put the door on the opposite side of the house. And I really feel very strongly against doing that in all but the kind of most extreme cases where it's completely obvious that there's a clear hierarchical or sort of compositional problem. I don't. There's none of those things are standing out in that way. I think that the reason that I don't embrace this fully is that there seems to be still something to work out compositionally, and I don't want to tell you what that is because I'm sure you're able to figure that out yourself and look at several options and decide what you think is right, weigh that against your client's needs, and so sometimes there is and there are degrees to which this works, but there are ways in which you need to guide your client as to what the proper direction is. Sometimes I try to get clients to build things that they don't actually want that I want, and sometimes it happens, sometimes it doesn't. But I always have to educate a client every single time. Meet professional clients. I mean, I have all professional clients now, and I always.
No one who meets with me gets out of there alive without that discussion.
So I think that they clearly have needs and program and budget that needs to be adhered to, but I think that within that there is some leeway for you to find a style and a language that is.
I don't think finding a style. I think refining the style within which we're working so that it doesn't feel like it's ambiguously between the 2 points. It's made a more definitive statement towards the direction, so that if this is a transitional prairie style house, that would be, in my thinking, a very appropriate arts and crafts position to take in this particular neighborhood where you've got ranch houses, which are the children of the prairie style, and you've got these fabulous, very traditional houses up the street, that this can be something that helps bridge it.
I would say a poor cousin of the traditional style. But I think that, again, my comment is this is an opportunity, this house.
Agreed.
And you can reach the historical district with the next door. You have tremendous interaction with the golf course. Actually, I was reading the Belden district, and it's a good point there. It says that understand the value of the open space provided by the golf course.
Right.
I think this house will benefit from understanding the value of a location.
I think we're pretty much there with most of them.
I'm not saying
I think the oversized windows
I'm just saying
make you totally understand. They are appropriate because that's the view.
What I'm saying that there are a couple of pointers here that are interested in the Belden Avenue and what we said in Strike District. I say that the materiality concerns me, that the stucco is, I don't know, I have to be convinced that this is the right transitional prairie style direction.
Okay.
That said,
it's a material that's evident in the neighborhood, in some of the nicer homes.
Which were?
The stucco.
Where?
29 Belden and.
Wait, that's a mansard roof.
Yes.
Nothing to do with the.
Second empire style.
This is a prairie style in between the ranches across the Gulf.
Quite a few beautiful prairie style houses are stucco.
Not convinced. But anyway, I'll give you the benefit of the
doubt. I have to agree with Yair. I don't know. It somehow feels wrong for the geometry and the way. And I know that
my fear is it will become like a contractor's type house.
Well, you've got a couple of houses on the other side of the golf course that are perfect examples of that.
But it's very different in spirit to this one.
Right. Those are just big old box houses that somebody slapped a lot of stucco on. It lacks that character and the quality.
I will go with you one by one and say we can comment.
Yeah.
I don't have a problem with
If you departed, I know I'm not asking you to tell me what to do, and trust me, we're going to experiment with different ideas.
We want also.
But other materials that you think would be more in keeping.
That's a great question. I am not sure.
Yeah, I mean, the clapboard was the logical to me, and I shouldn't say not a beveled clapboard, but like the tight.
I know that you can do good work. Yeah. So
I mean, I wouldn't go towards any like vertical siding or anything like that. I think that would completely be wrong. There's nothing, I shouldn't say, I mean, an alternative on the second floor could be a shingle. Because a shingle can do the same kinds of things that the clapboard can do, tying things together. So we'll look at those and see if we...
Yeah, I mean, I think you do a little research and see how some of those things have panned out and you could find the right module for this.
Well, we've got 3 houses that we've done in Irvington that came out great, that bridged that exact same discussion. One of them somewhat notorious because it was very modern, and there were no traditional houses near it. But while the architectural review board really liked it, approved it in one night, we were in front of the planning board for 11 months because of the major portion of it being the style. They were thinking that we should be doing, they've seen the very traditional houses that we've done, and why aren't you doing it? Because it's not appropriate in this location.
Good thing our planning board doesn't address architectural styles.
I'm gonna not touch that right now. That's a little too sensitive.
So,
I have to go to that board on Thursday, so.
Do you want to leave Patty with anything besides what
No, I think that we summed it up, so.
Yeah, well, I've written down 4 things actually. Make the effort towards the sky exposure plane. There's still too much in the middle. We need to kind of define ourselves. The third is, let's not have unadorned posts. Let's figure out what those are. And that this is an opportunity to try and find that bridge.
I think that you missed the fact that he's talking about the materials. Did you
Right.
put that down? Oh, I'm sorry.
Well, that's what I'm...
The style.
Yeah. I mean, so far I haven't heard anything that anybody saying, can you change the massing of the house in any dramatic way? I mean, I think the house, I think, pretty well works.
I think if the massing is the direction that you want to take, it means I don't have problem with that.
Right. And the
But I think that to dwell on the idea of what it means to be across the street from a golf course, that will give you some.
We're not doing a green wall.
No, not agree.
Not
Yeah,
easy.
not agree.
I'm actually glad we got rid of those at Rivertown Square. I was admitting that I was going to be getting calls for about 4 or 5 years. People calling me up and telling me those walls you said were going to be plants are nothing but dead things. So luckily that all got changed, which is good. Sometimes it works. Well, thank you very much. We'll be back at the next meeting.
Patty, so I'll make a motion, we continue this to the next meeting. Second, Yair, all unanimous.
Thank you much.
Okay, see you next time. No minutes. To make a motion, we adjourn this meeting.
Second.
Yair seconds. Unanimous, meeting adjourned.